wrecking someone's dreams, if you will. It's a hard job, but it is part of the job, and it is part of being in a very competitive environment.
Yeah, well, I think that it's, depending on the team. I know in Philadelphia they try to reach out and make contact with players personally and let them know. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes players leave their phones off and they don't want to hear the news, and then they'll turn it on and maybe there's a text from an agent or someone with the team saying, sorry you didn't make the team, or, please return your playbook, this afternoon, or, whenever they get cut. So I know some teams might not be as personal maybe with that, and they might just have the agent inform them. But I know in Philadelphia they do like to try to reach out to each player and let them know personally if they can. And then if they want to try to get them back to the practice squad, they'll tell them, listen, don't go far. We're going to try to bring you back. I think practice squads have to be set Sunday by 1 o'clock. You're allowed to add up to 10 players there. But first you have to clear waivers. Once you get released, any team can claim you for I think it's a 12-hour period. And then, you can bring them back to the practice squad if nobody claims you. So, that's kind of behind the scenes a little bit. I mean, teams do try to let them know they think personally, but, it's a tough, cruel business. And, there's 90 players on a roster heading up to, today, and you have to be at 53. So that's 37 guys on each team that have to lose their jobs in some form. So that's a lot of players to contact personally and let them know, via phone. So some of it's done by text, some of it's done through the agent, but they have to get their playbooks back to the team. So, that's an issue too. So they'll see the player once they return the playbook.
Well, absolutely, and certainly it's always interesting to see those that make it and those that don't, because a lot of times, a perfect example, our final game was against the Cincinnati Bengals in preseason, but we also opened up the season, and when I say we, I mean Indianapolis Colts, but we opened up the season with the Bengals, but it's going to be a completely different group of people on opening day than what it was on the end of that day. And, of course, a lot of people were like, oh, my God, Luck didn't play. Well, Luck didn't play because he didn't need to play, but also he did have a little bit of a sprain in his foot. I think he's good to go. I don't think there's any problems there. Of course, that's Luck. That's Andrew Luck, and it's just the talk of what's going on. Let's talk about some of the big news. Odell Beckham. Well, his dream came true, and he's going to be a New York Giant, and a very wealthy New York Giant, as well as a very capable receiver, and what I would call a missing link, or maybe not even the weak link, between Eli Manning and the very strong New York Giants. What are your thoughts about Odell Beckham cashing in?
Yeah, OBJ. I think he's the highest paid wide receiver now, if I'm not mistaken.
I think he is.
But with him, there's always that maturity level. I know these receivers can be prima donnas, and and he certainly is one of those. And I know Eli has tried to talk to him and calm him down a little bit and focus on the team. And remember when the Giants made the playoffs a couple of years, there was that big party boat that they rented down in Florida. Instead of preparing for a playoff game, they're down in South Florida out on a charter fishing boat living it up. So OBJ was part of that. Odell Beckham, he was part of that crew that did that. So, there's some off-field stuff. You hope now that he's a little more secure with his financial situation. He's a little more business-like the way he approaches, off-the-field stuff and the way he acts in-game. And he helps the Giants go where they want to go, which is back into the playoffs and try to make one last rush at a Super Bowl for Eli Manning, who's not getting any younger, and certainly doesn't have a whole lot of time left, I wouldn't think. He's a great piece to have in play for them. I think the Giants offensively have some really nice additions or some nice weapons. They have the tight end Evan Engram, and they have Odell Beckham now. They have Sterling Shepard, another receiver. I think they've upgraded their offensive line. So, the Giants are going to be a very good team, and they have a happy Odell Beckham, and that's a good start going into the year.
They ought to do a meme with him reaching out with one hand with grabbing the big check. That's what I think.
You see a lot of receivers. Yeah, but you see a lot of receivers nowadays making those one-handed catches. I know Beckham gets a lot of pub for that. I think it came on a primetime game, and it was a heck of a catch. But you've seen some other great catches with one hand and receivers too, like Jarvis Landry for the Cleveland Browns. If you're watching Hard Knocks, you see that guy making one-handed catches all the time. I mean, he's just a tremendous receiver as well. Excuse me, receiver as well. So, you're seeing more and more receivers being able to do that for sure.
Well, so also, just for those that are here in Indianapolis or fans of Indianapolis Colts, might remember Pat McAfee, which was one of the greatest punters we've had in recent memory. He left Indianapolis Colts, basically retired, and went to work for Barstool Sports as a podcaster and that sort of stuff. He has now parted ways with Barstool Sports and is looking for an opportunity for a team to take a look at him. Won't be the Indianapolis Colts. He does not feel like he would ever come back to the Indianapolis Colts for both personal and professional reasons. But, Pat, do you think Pat McAfee still has what it takes to be a punter in the NFL?
Well, I wasn't aware that he left Barstool Sports and he wants back in. How old is he? Do you know? I don't know. And how long?
27, maybe 28.
Oh, how long has he been out of the game?
3 years, maybe. So.
Oh, wow. Well, sounds like he might. Who knows if he's kept his leg in shape? Yeah, I guess he could. I know in Philadelphia they're going with a rookie, Cameron Johnston, who punted at Ohio State. He was in camp last year, but he didn't make the team, and this year he's going to be their guy. But there was some concern over whether or not they would have to bring in somebody else. But he actually had a pretty good camp, but he'll be watched closely. And I know there's another punter on the street, too, that's out there, Donnie Jones, who was the Eagles punter last year and decided to retire and then changed his mind. And the Eagles released him from the retirement list. So he's out there, too. So, Jones and McAfee, I guess they would be guys that, if a team needs a punter, sure, why not try to bring in a veteran and see what the leg can do for them.
Absolutely. We'll keep it in the spirit of our show today. College football opening weekend. Absolutely exciting time, and probably next to or equal to the opening day of the NFL. Your Penn State Nittany Lions are going to be without Barkley. Obviously, Barkley, a magnificent tool up there at the Giants as well. Certainly going to be a super fantasy pickup, one would think, during fantasy drafts. But what are your thoughts on Penn State? I honestly, myself, personally, I think that Penn State, with all of this going on with Ohio State, I think Penn State's got a great schedule. I think they go into the Big Ten championship against Wisconsin, beat Wisconsin, and they eke into the Final Four of the college football playoffs. What are your thoughts?
Whew, wow, yeah, that's you're already looking down the road in December here.
I'm going that far. I'm going there.
Yeah.
I'm going there.
I'm not going to join you on that limb just yet, but I think Penn State has a good returning team. Saquon Barkley, obviously number 2 overall pick in the draft, he's gone, but Penn State's pretty high on Miles Saunders, and he saw some time in relief of Barkley last year, and certainly. He's not Saquon Barkley, but I don't think he's going to be too much of a step down. I think because you still have the quarterback, Trace McSorley, who's back, and I've seen he's kind of listed in some Heisman, some preseason Heisman Trophy talk. So, he's certainly dynamic. McSorley, very competitive, very fiery, likes to win, and that's where it all starts. And he's back. He's very experienced. This is his 3rd year starting, and I think what you'll see this year from Penn State is a better offensive line, a more veteran offensive line. That's kind of been their, if you want to say, a weak spot the past couple of years is the youth of that offensive line. Well, now it's veterans. These guys have gotten a lot of time together, and I think that should be a big strength for them. One of the areas I think is a concern is the wide receiver group. They lost a couple guys on the perimeter there. So, some guys are going to have to step up there. But that's, again, that's the way college football is. You lose guys. Every team's in that boat. Penn State certainly is at some spots, but they're very strong at others. The line, like I mentioned, offensively, and then the quarterback, and then I don't think Miles Saunders is going to be that big of a step down from Barkley. He'll be able to do some of the things that Barkley did. He won't be as good, I don't think, but I don't think he needs to be.
Joining us is Ed Kratz, beat writer for the Philadelphia Eagles, our official NFL contributor, and also our official contributor of all accounts, and that is Mo from the BS Sports Show. Mo, how are you doing, sir?
Good, guys.
Are you going to be all right there? Are you getting all choked up?
Yes, anytime I'm on with that, I do get a little choked up.
I understand. Well, Mo, we wanted to get your thoughts. Obviously, college football opening weekend, big game, one that we're following closely here. Rick is going to be glued to the tube at B-Dubs tonight, watching Notre Dame and Michigan, big rivalry here. I think Michigan beats. I think Notre Dame beats Michigan. Jim Harbaugh is the most overrated, overpaid coach. If he loses, he's 8-8. His seat definitely begins to heat up a little bit. I think they're going to go 0-2 before they get a win. Michigan is in deep trouble before they even start. No?
Well, I think the one thing Michigan has lacked over the last few years is a very substantial quarterback, and I think that they found that this year. So, I think Michigan brings a lot of guys back, retains a lot of guys on defense. They did have an early injury to their wide receiver. But I think that Michigan may have finally found that missing piece in a quarterback. And so I think that Michigan probably comes out and wins this football game. I think there's some questions in many different areas with Notre Dame. I think we could see maybe a season where, it could be Brian Kelly on the hot seat as opposed to Jim Harbaugh. I think something egregious is going to have to happen for Harbaugh to be on the hot seat. It's going to have to be a pretty terrible season for him to be on his way out because he hasn't brought another spotlight to that Michigan program. Has he beat Ohio State yet? No, but they've been to some pretty decent bowl games, and and Jim Harbaugh's done a lot of good there at Michigan. But I think this year, with a quarterback like Shea Patterson, I think this is the year that Michigan could do some damage in the Big Ten.
Guys, I want to get your thoughts on something here. Obviously, we don't need to go all the way down the Urban Meyer trail. We beat that to death on Breaking Rank and other parts of the show. One of the things that I do think is going to happen, Urban Meyer is not going to be the coach of Ohio State next year. I think he's going to go to the Cleveland Browns. This is just my thought pattern. And Lane Kiffin gets a shot at either LSU or Ohio State as another head coach. I know he's failed miserably 3 times, but I think Ohio State would give Lane Kiffin a look. What are your thoughts, Bo?
Well, Urban Meyer tends to stick around about 6 or 7 years and then bolt as things start to, come to light. And it could be very possible that Urban Meyer is gone, but I would say that there would have to be some more things that come out in order for that to happen. Obviously, Ohio State really decided that football was more important than anything else when it came to keeping Urban Meyer on. So I don't see why a coach would fight so hard to keep his job and then leave, but that seemed to be his pattern so far. Lane Kiffin, it's hard to say. He's blown up a couple different spots he's been at. I think maybe he is more suited to be a coordinator at this point. For a big-time program like Ohio State to give Lane Kiffin a shot, I think things would have to be pretty dire and desperate there. I think he's found a decent spot for him and his coaching talents at Florida Atlantic. It's hard for me to see him coming back to a very big-time program like that.
Well, Florida Atlantic, we're keeping our eyes on today against Oklahoma. A lot of implications with that game, especially if they pull out a win. Ed, what are your thoughts, possibly Urban Meyer? I know we're way down the road on this, but certainly we got to have the rumor mill circulating quite frequently. Urban Meyer to the Cleveland Browns in 2019. Or 2020, whatever the year would be. Next year.
2019, yeah. I don't know. We got to see how the Browns do. Clearly, they have more talent this year, I think, than they've had in the past. And I've watched this Hard Knocks show with Hugh Jackson, and he certainly doesn't seem like he inspires a whole lot of confidence that he can turn this thing around. And but we'll see. Maybe talent will out-trump coaching. But I don't know. So I'm not sure Hugh Jackson, if he goes 8-8, is going to lose his job. But that doesn't mean Urban Meyer won't leave Ohio State. I guess that's possible. Does he want to coach in the pros? We'll see. I'm sure the pros would love to have him. The team would love to have him. Would it be Cleveland? We'll have to wait and see. There's some other coaches still probably be on the hot seat. Maybe, finally Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati, depending on how they do this season. But yeah, I could see Urban Meyer leaving Ohio State after this year. Like Mo said, he tends to kind of wear out his welcome a little bit, or as things come to light, as the walls start crumbling around him after 5, 6, 7 years. So I could see that possibly happening. But as far as him going to Cleveland, I don't know about that. it could be another college job. I don't see what would be more prestigious than Ohio State, though.